If you keep re-explaining the job, softening the feedback, extending the timeline, and bending over backwards to make one employee successful, I want you to hear this. That's not support, that's overfunctioning. And a lot of new managers overfunction because they don't want to face what might be true, that the situation may actually need corrective action. And this is usually the moment managers either keep avoiding corrective action and shoulder the burden, or panic and jump to a PIP without doing the real management work first. This video is about what should happen before you put an employee on a PIP. Hi, I'm Jen Arnold, and I help new leaders navigate their first people management role. Here's what I see all the time. A manager says, "Hey Jen, I've tried everything." But when we actually sort through the details, here's what happens. They've tried being patient, they've tried being understanding, they've tried giving reminders. They've tried cleaning up things behind the scenes. But what they haven't tried is being uncomfortably direct. And that matters. Because support becomes over-functioning when you're doing the work the employee should be doing. You're not helping someone by working harder at their job than they are. Because once you cross into doing it for them, you stop being their manager and start becoming the enabler that keeps their underperformance alive. They're getting paid to do their job, and you're not getting paid any extra for doing theirs. So let's walk through 5 steps to take before you put someone on a PIP. The very first step you need to take is stop rescuing them. Stop rewriting the work. Stop sending the reminder they should not need. Stop covering the mist before anyone notices. Stop cushioning the consequence. Stop acting like your exhaustion is proof that you're being supportive. Your exhaustion may actually be proof that the system is broken. And sometimes you are the system. I know that sounds harsh, but I mean it with compassion. Because a lot of good managers get stuck here, especially new managers. They think, if I just coach a little more, if I explain it a different way, if I help a little bit more, maybe this turns around. Sometimes that's all it needs. But sometimes all that extra effort just delays the truth. Holding someone accountable is not being mean or unkind. If you're dragging out a situation that everyone already knows is not working, that is not kind. That's cruel. I worked with a leader who was bending over backwards not to have a hard conversation. She created job aids. She took on the extra work this person wasn't getting done and did everything in her power to set this person up for success, all the while getting more and more frustrated. She just kept stuffing it down until she started venting upwards to her boss. And that's when her leader had to step in and do the job that she wasn't doing. This new leader had invested so much that she had started measuring her effort instead of the employee's ownership. And those aren't the same thing. Just because you are trying hard doesn't mean the employee is improving. Step 2, have you given clear, direct feedback? Before you even start thinking about a PIP, I want you to do a gut check. I want you to ask yourself, have I made the expectation explicit? Have I named the pattern that's happening? Have I been clear about what needs to change? Or have I mostly been hinting, cushioning, and kind of hoping things will work out? Because a lot of managers are giving what I call a fuzzy feedback. They say things like, I just need you to be more proactive. I need you to communicate better. I need a little bit more ownership here. That's not clear enough. What does proactive even mean? About what? How often is that happening? What's the impact? What does being proactive actually look like? If your feedback is vague, the employee can always tell themselves that, hey, I'm doing fine. So before formal action, ask yourself, was I truly clear in my expectations in their performance? Not clear in your head, but clear out loud. All right, so if this is a step that you're saying, yeah, I probably need to go spend more time here, check out my video on giving meaningful feedback. I have a 4-step framework called IDEA that it will walk you through step by step on how to give feedback that is direct and clear. Because you don't want to end up like this one client I worked with who was completely drained by one employee. She told me, I have had so many conversations with them and they're not improving. And that was true. She did have conversations, but every conversation was some version of, hey, I know you're busy, I know you have a lot on your plate. I just need you to show up a little more consistently here. They're just hints. It's not direct feedback. Step 3, is the behavior a pattern? Of course, I want you to address one-off incidents, but I also want you to notice and name patterns, especially if the feedback you're giving for these one-off incidents is not making any difference. Because if you only talk about these kind of one-off situations, the employee can explain it away. They can say things like, hey, that was just a misunderstanding. I was just really overloaded. Hey, that client's really difficult. I thought somebody else had it. Maybe all of that is true. But if it keeps happening, the issue is no longer the incident. The issue is the pattern. So name the pattern. Say something like, for the last 3 events, when I compare your output to the team's, your numbers are significantly lower than theirs. I'm seeing a pattern. This is what a lot of managers skip because you're busy, but it's important to take the time to notice patterns or trends and name them through clear, direct, and consistent feedback. All right, step 4, notice the response to the feedback you're giving because that's part of the performance. If every conversation turns into deflection, minimizing, excuse making, or turning it back on everyone else, that's not separate from that performance problem. It's part of it. Okay, now to be clear, I'm not saying that someone has to love getting hard feedback. Most people don't. I don't. No one does. But over time, you should start seeing some sign of ownership, some reflection, some adjustment, some behavior change. If you notice the pattern of, hey, I'm giving this feedback, nothing changes, and somehow it's always someone else's fault, it's not just a skill issue. It's an accountability issue. Step 5, find out your organization's formal performance process. Here's what I've seen. Managers call up HR one day saying, hey, I want to fire so-and-so, and they have zero evidence that that person's actually underperforming. So before you move into formal corrective action, find out how your organization moves through the process. So reach out to HR, lean on your internal processes. Don't make it up. You don't need to be the policy expert, but you do need to know when it's time to stop treating this like an informal coaching issue. Because here's the thing, this is tricky. Not every performance problem is the same. Sometimes the person doesn't know what good looks like. Sometimes they know, but they can't execute consistently. Sometimes they can execute, but they won't take ownership. Sometimes it's simply the wrong role. But by having these coaching conversations, you both may realize that, hey, it's just not a good job fit. I worked with an organization recently that helped a person who was in a poor job fit, gave them time to go interview instead of putting them on a PIP, but they didn't let it linger. Once you've walked through those 5 steps, you need to make a decision. Is this still a coaching path or is it a corrective path? Okay, it's probably still coaching if expectations were unclear, feedback was inconsistent, there's a real skill gap, and the employee is showing ownership. It's probably corrective if there's an ongoing pattern, it's documented, your feedback has been clear and direct, ownership is low on behalf of the employee, deflection is high, and improvement is just not happening. That's the difference. And this is where a performance improvement plan gets misunderstood. A PIP is not supposed to be this dramatic surprise moment where you say, gotcha. It should be the next step in a pattern that's already been clearly addressed. The purpose is to coach up or coach out. Either the structure helps the person improve in a real, measurable way, or it clarifies that they shouldn't stay in the role. And that's what the formal action is for. Because the step before a PIP is not usually one more gentle reminder. It is usually a very clear, honest conversation. And again, holding someone accountable is your job. And real management means being clear enough, honest enough, and steady enough to deal with what is actually happening, not what you wish would happen. I would love to hear how this is resonating with you. Have you taken someone through a performance plan and what were the results? If you want to get alerted to future videos, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and I will bring you practical leadership advice that you can apply right away. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.